Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are doing what I read in the month of March 2023. I'm filming in a little different location because I got new bedding and I just wanted to kind of like show it off. Got my kind of aesthetic bedding, makes me really happy. So we're recording here instead of my bookshelves like we usually do. I get right into, I started the month off with Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. The thoughts on this book, it seemed really a vampire, so her father gives her off to another person who's like a vampire, and for like a political bargaining, like for his politics. And obviously she's not a big fan of that, and the reason she's going there so that she can basically make a baby and serve her father a purpose and be basically a bloodbath for the full vampire that lives there. And anyways, shortcut, there ends up being 3 vampires, and one of the vampires is kind of like trapped in the house and we need to get him free, and that's part of like a part. This book comes in like 3 parts. It's a very thick book. Here's just a rundown. This book is basically porn. Basically pornography. There's not a chapter where they haven't had sex at least twice. At least. They have to have a full-on orgy to free their souls. This is one of the dumbest books ever, and it has way too much sex for a person to sit there without visibly gagging every 5 minutes. This is a book where I had to stop like here. I was like, I can't finish it. It's too much. It's not good. 1 out of 5. Did not start off strong. I was like, oh, I think I'd like this. This was a waste of $17. I'm sorry, this did not start off the book positively, but if you like vampires and a bunch of sex, it's a 1 out of 5 stars. So, we did not start off it strong. But then we went on to, that I read was Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. So, Maybe Someday is about a girl named Sydney, who, her boyfriend cheated on her, and whatever, and her life is not going so good so far. And so basically, with her best friend, aka her roommate, she has to move out, and then there's a neighbor right across from her, like across her complex, that she can see, that plays music on his deck every night, and that's where you meet Ridge, who is part of a really big band that she loves, and he usually writes songs for him, and he's deaf. He's also like 21, and he has a girlfriend. Keep that in mind. So, he was played out on the balcony, and Sydney always liked the music, and blah, blah, blah. One day, Sydney is kind of like writing like songs for him and his band, and then they get kind of connected in more ways than one, even though he still has his girlfriend, but his girlfriend is long distance out in college. And there's some little turns. I really did enjoy this book. Really good. It made me very, very happy. Loved the whole music aspect, and the fact that he was deaf. Had a lot of like meaningful moments, and had a lot of feels. I did really enjoy it. Like a 4 out of 5. It was really good. It really redeemed the last book I read. That's it, 4 out of 5. So then we went into November 9th by Colleen Hoover. I would say this is probably one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. It's one of her smaller ones, but it truly was so enjoyable. So there's this girl named Fallon, and she meets Ben at a little diner, and Ben pretends to be her boyfriend for her father, like to stand up for her. And Fallon has this rule where she is not gonna like date or commit to anyone until she's 23, and right now she's only like 19 or something. And they have a really good attraction together, and they spend the whole day together while she's getting ready, about to go and fly out to New York because it's their last day. So she spends her last day with this random stranger, and they have instant attraction, her last day in LA with him, and then they make a pact to live their own separate lives, and they give each other like homework and work, and they'll meet at the same place at the same time on November 9th every year, like to just get to know each other, because Ben is a writer and hers is, she wants to be an actress again, even though she went through a terrible accident when she was younger. And there's so many twists. I cried. Things happen that you don't expect, and their relationship really is beautiful and makes me very, very happy. And so many things happen in their separate lives that affect them, that just really make the story develop. And there's a lot of moments where I was feeling so many things that the character and the book and the plot, and made me very, very happy. So 4.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you. The next book is books that people have been like obsessed with recently, and it's Verity by Colleen Hoover. So if you didn't know, Verity is about Lowen, who is a writer, and she gets dragged in to help one of a really big writer finish her series, and the really big writer's name is Verity Crawford, and Verity Crawford got in a really bad car accident, and she got in a really bad car accident, and she can't move, like she's literally, it's kind of like a mystery, like thriller. As Lowen starts going through her stuff to help Verity finish the series, she finds a manuscript written by Verity. The book was very highly overrated. It was good. It did have a little bit of a spooky aspect to it, but the twists were very predictable and they weren't that big. They happened like here, and then it kind of left off with a little bit of a twist, but it wasn't big enough to be like, oh my god, I'm on my edge of my seat. It really, really was an overrated book. And the book's a little fucked up. Like, it's really fucked up. But it's not a lot of like thrilling aspects, so people and their person kind of like holding them together-ish, and since the dad died, and then Morgan, the mom, kind of leans into someone she least expected she would from her past, and they find out things about the dad, like Morgan finds things about her husband that she did not expect, has a lot of twists and turns, and then Clara meets a boy, and she kind of takes comfort in him, and her mother doesn't really like the boy, and it's a lot of just twists and turns about the two different perspectives of how people deal with grief. This was one of my favorite books about Colleen Hoover because it wasn't like directly about the romance. It was more directly about how two people develop over such a big thing, and it really did have really a cute like mother-daughter relationship, and the ending was adorable. It wasn't adorable just because of like the love interest for both of the women. It was adorable because of the relationship and love between the mother and the daughter. And, you know, it was such a real world like grieving thing. It was very, very good. I rate this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was beautifully written. The next book that I read was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This woman, she went to jail for 5 years for a crime she didn't commit, but she said she did because she still felt guilty anyway. Her and her boyfriend got in a car crash, and she ended up leaving him there because of the fear that she had. She didn't know what to do in the moment. She went to jail for 5 years, and little did she know, when she was in prison, she found out she was pregnant with his baby. And then the baby went to the boy's parents, and 5 years later, she's out of prison trying to get her kid back, and she meets a guy who's very, very in on the kid's life, but she doesn't know that until after. She ends up hooking up with him in his car, and so it's kind of like their love story of like they're forbidden to see each other because the parents hate the girl, obviously, because they think she killed their son. I loves this girl, though, that's trying to get her kid back, but it's kind of like a forbidden romance, and very cute. I like how real the book is, and I do really like their story. It's not a lot of like touchy, affectionate romance. It's a lot of I want you, I can't have you, appreciative romance, secretive, and like they're not together, but they kind of want each other, and it's very cute. It's not very lighthearted, but it was a very good book, so I give it like a 4 out of 5. Then after that, I read Confess by Colleen Hoover. Confess was very, very good, and again, it's about a mother who her boyfriend was dying of cancer when she was pregnant with his baby, and the mother of the son that died of cancer decides to make the girl Auburn sign like a thing to give the mother custody, and years later, the woman's like 20 and she moved to Dallas to be near her son. She can like not even have the son over for a night because like the mother, like the grandmother, is like taking control of the son. And so she lost the love of her life and she can barely see her child. And then she meets Owen Gentry, who has some issues and a very fucked up father and goes to prison a lot, and is not entirely a person you want around a kid, or at least he seems like that to others. And so to keep her kid, she kind of stay away from him, and then she ends up like a really serious book, but their love is so cute, and he does art, so it's obviously very, very meaningful. It's a very beautifully written book, and I really, really, I enjoyed it. 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book that I read of the month was The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This book kind of tore me to pieces. I technically was not supposed to read this. It brings up a lot of trauma and PTSD for me of any relationship to rape. This book will really like touch you, and you'll have very different opinions on it than most people would, but it was a beautifully written book. I love how it was the 4 parts of high school, and it just showed how trauma can really change somebody, and it just showed that one thing can happen to a person and the person can become completely different, and people can change but they can still be a different person. And beautifully written book, very, very meaningful, very, very harsh, traumatic, and but it was really good. And it's just how the past can haunt you only if you let it. It was very, very beautifully written. If I would give it a 5 out of 5 because it really did touch all the bases, and I related to it, and it beautifully spoke out about how it is and really represented. I really did appreciate the book, even though it kind of ruined me for a few days. 5 out of 5, The Way I Used to Be by Amber Heard. And that was all I read this month. And I guess I will see you guys next month, or maybe later in the month. And happy reading, and I hope April was as good as Reading Month. Bye!